Hallo miteinander, I'm Geshedi6 and this is Touhou Gensoumaroku W, usually shortened to the Devil of Decline. Here we have a turn-based RPG by fangame developer Strawberry Bose, who has garnered a very positive reputation through several titles. Amusingly, I have mentioned their most prestigious work, the Genius of Sappheiros, in multiple videos and even recommended it to a commenter once. But until now, I had never featured a Strawberry Bose game, and I cannot give you a good reason why. Let's instead appreciate that we are here now, at our home base of Hakure Shrine. We are controlling Byakuren Hijiri, the great magician of Hokkai, who is leading 4 other girls into battle: Remilia, Yuka, Marissa and Sanai. All of them are wearing gear of medieval fantasy, but also employ 3 Shikigami, spiritual creatures, sometimes monsters we have befriended, yet more often other Touhou characters. To give you a thorough impression of the gameplay loop, we shall fast travel to a side quest zone called Interstice Boundary. The world of Devil of Decline is impressively vast and open. Even better, the game doesn't make a habit of funneling you onto a single path early on, which results into a really exciting sense of exploration. Very rarely do you hit a barrier. If you're strong enough to handle the bestiary of a zone, you'll have reason to be there. This interstice boundary was supposedly only added for the modernized console ports. The original Comiket release of Devil of Decline is quite old actually, I think at least 12 years or so. An oldie but goldie. The visit to this zone was already worth it, as we found a Dispel robe as new attire for Marissa. Byakuren here has a special field skill meant for all the people who can't bear to miss a single treasure. One press of the designated button not only tells you how many prizes are left to find on the current map, they'll also be highlighted by an eye-catching UFO. The one just now contained a fancy and potent axe. Our video takes place at a fairly advanced point of the game, so enemy encounters have to be taken seriously. Jaws, as well as the green carbuncle, can be found during the main quest, but I think the vampirus is exclusive to the interstice boundary. I handled standard mobs like these very recklessly most of the time. It's very important to thin enemy lines quickly before they get their actions in. Long-term strategies like buffing and debuffing tend to be more sensible for boss battles. The typical roles our roster fulfills are the following. Byakuren is a hybrid between warrior and mage with a knack for ailments. Remilia is a fast and deadly assassin. Marissa a very swift mage. Yuka makes for a tank as bulky as few others, and Sanai is a mage with supporting capabilities. The game features over 20 recruitables. While that sounds like you'll have a lot of freedom in who you bring, keep in mind that everyone joins at level 1. If you want to adjust your setup, it's smart to do this as soon as possible. Otherwise, you'll have to come to terms with the newcomer lagging behind when it matters. The 15 Shikigami we bring level up just like party members. In fact, most party members can be temporarily transformed into Shikigami, which is a much less intrusive method to get them past the lower levels before they potentially get that spot among our heroes. I briefly mentioned that Byakuren is the leading lady for this story, but that needn't actually be the case. Devil of Decline lets you choose between 4 girls at its start, and the differences between these routes are not small or superficial. The other 3 candidates are Reimu, Mei Ling and Yukari. All very popular choices, but if you know me, very few Touhous would come out on top in a duel for my favor against the kind but decisive Byakuren Hichiri. Not an exceptionally threatening encounter we are currently in, although the winged misses in the back could cause problems. She's called a Virgin Moshuvu and can charm or control our party members. Strawberry Bose games throw ailments at the player early and often to disjoint tactics. Therefore, you shouldn't ever underestimate a seemingly generic encounter, provided you have not outleveled the area. Before you know it, you'd witness Marissa nuking her own folks. You do receive accessories for specific ailment immunity, yet that will of course occupy an equipment slot, and you have no guarantee that something is the one and only ailment of the zone. Furthermore, Devil of Decline allows for no duplicate equipment, which makes party-wide immunity to a status difficult to achieve. Both the Genius of Sappheiros and Devil of Decline are considered Saga-likes. In case that doesn't mean anything to you, Saga is a cousin franchise to Final Fantasy. Its early entries were even labeled Final Fantasy Legend for the Western market. Those games are known for being a lot more experimental in their gameplay, and also tend to have the recurring trait that the actions your party members take gradually make them better at those same actions. This applies to us as well. Whenever Remilia pokes something with her spear, she gets a small amount of stab weapon proficiency, just like Marissa gets Mystic Spell proficiency when she casts Rainbow Ray. You may only be notified of the increase when a full level is accumulated, but it's still really motivating to know that every little thing you do counts. The many frequent improvements you experience are much nicer than the very rare dopamine that comes from character level ups. We get those too, of course. I'm emphasizing that because there are Saga titles without character level ups. During the 2000s, Saga as a franchise was in a pretty rough patch after the notoriously dreadful Entry Unlimited Saga. That didn't stop Strawberry Bose from making inspired fan games, though. I doubt there are bigger superfans out there than them, and it's nice that Saga seems to be recovering nowadays, with the most recent entry getting released in 2024 and being very appreciated. Looks like we can't reach this very tempting chest from this side. We would have had to have taken a different path at an earlier fork in the road for it. There are some gimmicks and environmental puzzles guarding treasures and progress in this game, but I wouldn't say they're ever too challenging. Certainly less than the comparable Labyrinth of Touhou games. Apart from raising weapon and elemental proficiencies, you also actively have to upgrade weapon skills. This will only work though if you are wielding a weapon with the correct mastery for a specific skill. If you ever see us using a skill even when it's not the most tactically sound, it's probably because we're beefing it up for the future. That's also why we haven't equipped that bisecting Nata we found. Its time to shine will come one day, almost no gear is useless here. I wasn't exactly on cue to mention it, but yes, we are indeed facing a modern battle tank. Your eyes aren't playing tricks on you. As you would probably expect, the Panzer IV has high defenses, with spears and swords being particularly ineffective against it. It's too bad we don't have King Bradley on our team. He'd beat a tank with a saber. Instead, we will have to rely on Marissa's magic the most. Unfortunately, she has just been put to sleep. Byakuren has it even worse. The tank has felled her with a standard attack, which I guess would be its machine gun. It had the graphics of a stab. Being downed in Devil of Decline is not as big of a deal as in many contemporary RPGs. Revival spells are plentiful, and after a fight has been won, your group is healed to full regardless. Better still, a total party wipe costs you no progress, you are simply warped out to your last resting spot. Difficulty instead comes from some bosses being legendarily menacing. Strawberry Bose games are notoriously challenging, but they don't do this by punishing you with inconvenience. You're never made to fear losing, the only thing at risk is the time you've spent in the encounter itself. Our battle against the Panzer is growing quite stagnant. Our casters are incapacitated, and even Remilia has spent most of her magic points. MP are only recovered on resting spots, so you can run out of juice if you dungeoneer too long. With only 127 MP and fairly expensive spear skills, Remilia is prone to doing just that. Next to any enemy's name is a symbol that informs you of its respective species. In case of this tank, it's a Tsukumogami, a besouled object. You face many of this type, for example killer robots, or let's say Kogasa. Yeah, Kogasa is basically a panzer, the resemblance is uncanny. There is a gameplay mechanic called slay effects, and these are found on certain weapons and weapon skills. If you use the intended slay effect on such a species, you'll hit them significantly harder. Interestingly, this applies to the player as well. Marissa is classified as a mage, I believe, so you can say goodbye to her if a mage-slaying attack ever targets her. It was a grueling encounter with some of the worst luck imaginable, but finally the Panzer has been reduced to junk. I think we've done enough exploring of the interstice boundary, but there's more I want to present of this game. I've hyped up the boss battles in Devil of Decline, so the second half of this video shall include one. Because I wasn't happy with the dungeoneering portion I was originally going to show you, this boss was chronologically fought just before we went to the interstice boundary. What you are going to see was my very first attempt at this battle at the Upper Castle of Chaos. I guess that reveals I won at some point, but was it right here, quick and easy and without prior knowledge of the encounter? We'll see. Within this cutscene, our group is looking quite different. Remilia, Yuyuko, Sunny and Sanai are the allies you gain during the prologue of Byakuren's route. Although we've exchanged the ghost and the fairy, the original crew will always be considered for story segments. This is the Heads of Eintei's first entrance. While Erin seems her usual self, the princess has already been Shikigami-fied due to the ongoing incident. I mentioned that there are other protagonists, so there are technically 4 variations of every cutscene. That really impresses me. Of course, the conclusion of each version will roughly be the same. Everyone will get into a quarrel with these two, yet the dialogue and participants aren't a constant. While I haven't gotten around to trying out the other routes, I've taken glimpses and I know that Mei Ling's is unexpectedly popular. It's because this game's Mei Ling isn't a cool kung fu powerhouse, but a total goober that sleeps in a dog kennel. She somehow stumbles into the role of party leader while having no authority or expected qualities. Funnier still, you meet some big shot opponents that will recognize the other hero's reputation. They will instead ask her who the fuck she's supposed to be and whether she got lost. Eren and Kaguya aren't our enemies in this quest. They too want Gensokyo to thrive and be saved, but they refuse to ally with us without a proof of our worth. A pretty common trope in fan games, nonetheless an idea that I appreciate. Hands are about to be thrown. Bosses in this game aren't excessively tanky on average, but they hit hard and not seldomly have some sort of puzzle to them. In time, we'll learn of this one's quirk. It might have to do with Eren being a doctor. In combat, she's considered an archer with a focus on stab attacks, whereas Kaguya is the classic archetype of elemental caster. Gear and accessories with stab resistance can help, but I wouldn't say they're mandatory. This first round of combat will be spent on buffing our party. The limit of buffs any character can have is 5, so there is a small risk of overdoing it. Apart from that, bosses of late game encounters may mass dispel your party, so you might also not want to spend too many actions on buffs. It should be fine here though. The key to victory against Entei lies with bringing a very specific weapon, the legendary Fianna Spear. Legendary is part of the name, I'm not grading it. I didn't know to bring it, but through sheer luck, and because it is a recent weapon at this point, Remilia happened to be carrying it. We'll learn what's so special about this spear once the second turn commences. Apart from attack-focused Shikigami like Yugi and PC98 Marissa, longer battles like this also require healing abilities you can find with, for example, Akio and the generic Kedama. Earlier, it was better to just rush enemies before they destroyed us, but with 8,000 hit points per boss, that can't possibly work now. Some Shikigami are found at fixed locations, others are recruited after battles as if they're a lucky equipment drop. The clingy zombie girl Shaina that Byakuren is summoning this round is one such case. Just then, a crucial message popped up on Kaguya, no longer able to heal. The Fianna Spear can leave the heal blocking ailment on all of its attacks. Both Kaguya and Eren are exceptionally susceptible to this. Heal blocking is classified as a permanent and will stay on enemies until it's either cleansed by a spell or several turns have passed, so it's not as literally permanent as its name. Other permanents would be poison or blind, and it's really important to keep our foes heal blocked, especially in the late phase of the fight. We'll be ordering Remilia and Marissa to use their attack spell cards this turn. These never cost MP, but only a few uses of them are permitted until you reach a resting spot. During dungeoneering, these should be used sparingly, but right here, it would not be smart to be stingy. If you're completely out of Master Sparks after you've won, you did everything right. On the top right of the screen, there are several gauges and colored globes. They signify the land power of the current battle. There are 3 pairs of opposing elements: fire against water, earth against thunder, and light against dark. If a shift goes towards an element through repeated casting of spells, those spells will grow ever stronger. Right now, we have a decent tendency towards fire. Especially early game bosses often focus on a single element, spamming whatever they're themed after. Your counterplay will be to keep the opposing element as strong as you can, so that the damage you suffer stays as low as possible. Furthermore, boss abilities are often locked until land power shifts harsh enough. Supposedly, that is the case for our dear Kaguya. The princess may react to the gauges with stronger versions of the spells we've seen her use. In such cases, you want to preserve a balance in land power, keep it towards the middle as much as you can. When any member of Team A&T's hit points has fallen as low as in our attempt, Erin's medical instincts kick in and she will try to heal. She does this with the move Water Pulse. Too bad for her, it didn't do a thing. Erin will not check if anyone is heal blocked and just routinely waste her action, making the heal block ailment so very worth it for us. I can't say how mandatory this is to do. Perhaps it is also possible to outdamage the effect of Water Pulse. There is another trap to this encounter one could fall into. We've been splitting our damage equally between Erin and Kaguya, and that's apparently the ideal approach that I just guessed correctly. By now I have read that when these bosses don't die at the same time, or at least in the same turn, the survivor revives the deceased to full health. In many RPGs, you would handle a dual boss fight by focusing your damage on one enemy first, but here, that is what you absolutely do not want to do. I suspected some gimmick, but my guess would have been more that the survivor enraged, or that she would immediately cast a Battle Ender. After all, that is somewhat how the Labyrinth of Touhou 1 A&T boss fight went back in the day. It's peculiar that once you've played a lot of RPGs, you create this instinct to read the developer's mind. It's like we're trying to be Satori. Getting close. Early in the fight, Erin casts the field magic Jackpot. It's still being displayed in the top right, and just like land power, field magic isn't an individual buff. It affects everybody. However, only one such effect can be active at a time. If we brought our own, we could have overwritten it. Instead, we used our own multi-hit attacks, which is what Jackpot improves, and profited from that as Erin did. A risky approach, but ultimately viable, as we have won. So this very first, most uneducated attempt was indeed successful. I assure you, this does not happen often with this game. Kaguya will be usable as a Shikigami, whereas Erin can be toggled to either Shikigami or party member. This change to be playable is courtesy of the newest port of Devil of Decline. It wasn't like that in said ancient Comiket release. So why are some of the girls devolving into Shikigami? That has to do with the incident's culprit, who is gradually destroying the history of the Gensokians. It's a good thing we are safe from them and have all the time in the world as chosen ones. Or do we? There is in fact a special challenge mode in Devil of Decline, and it's tied to choosing Yukari as your protagonist. Only the Gap Hag must raise a doomsday clock, otherwise the antagonist just wins in your absence. I haven't personally tried this mode yet, but from what I've heard, you're not timed as in you must be speedy. Instead, the clock advances after battling trash mobs, so your grinding is finite. You're warned by the game to not pick Yukari first, but I imagine playing with these rules is quite exhilarating for the already knowledgeable. Here is that nasty destructive culprit, Angra Mainok. I think this character is the Lucifer equivalent of Zoroastrianism, and was of course not introduced by Zun. This is an OC by Strawberry Bose. While OCs in fan games could be lame, Strawberry Bose seems to be getting a pass, as their titles are consistently beloved. Plus, the new designs tend to be adorable. With that, we're just about at the end of our video. Devil of Decline really surprised me. I expected it to be pretty good, about as good as its predecessor. It ended up becoming one of my favorite fan game RPGs, an absolute must-play. With that, I'm Geshady6, this was Devil of Decline, And I guess Kogasa is slightly cuter than a battle tank. Bis bald!